Hi, Alice.
Hey Jenny, nice to see you again.
I'm super excited about what we're talking about today, which is
Drum roll.
what 81,000 people want from AI. I mean, I think I clicked on it like the second I saw the post from Anthropic on LinkedIn, where they shared this study that they did back from December 2024. So it was a survey, and it was 80,000 people across 159 countries in 70 languages. They believe that this is the largest and most multilingual qualitative study ever conducted. I think for me, what really kind of stood out was just like this AI giving people hope, the fact that they're tapping into the emotional. I don't think that's what I expected to see when I like clicked right on it. And also just like such a broad spectrum of responses of people coming from different industries, education, productivity, research, like people using AI in different ways, and also people sharing what they don't think AI is good for and what fears they have. I really actually loved that part of it the most because it resonated with me a lot. So, yeah, let's just like jump right in.
I mean, same. Probably because I spent all of my time in the tech bubble. I was really curious to see how people actually use AI and connect with AI outside of the tech bubble. When you say qualitative research, that's very hard to do. And they actually do it the scientific proper way with observers. So using ethnographic, I think they're called, and, observational techniques. For me, it was the same, the fear and, concerns part. I'm happy that they jumped right into that. But also, what stood out to me was the fact that, in terms of percentages, the two main use cases are one, the obvious one, which is professional enhancement and advancement. But the second one is actually personal transformation. So when they talk about that category, they talk about having the therapeutic, emotional intelligence, personal issues solved or, explored with AI. That to me was, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it, talking about what triggers me.
So, this actually triggered me in a really good way. First of all, I just love how on brand it is for Anthropic. And I love when companies are on brand because it's so rare, especially in the tech space. It means you have defined a strong enough perspective and point of view, and you know deeply who you are. The altruism behind this study and this survey is also something that I really love. And also just the really fascinating results. People being scared of losing the ability to do what makes them good at their jobs, thinking was the last frontier. And I think about this all the time. I use Claude to help me brainstorm in a lot of the creative processes I have around what we're doing, what I'm working on it for my personal podcast. And I try to be really thoughtful about it. But as I'm being thoughtful, I ask myself, how many people are really going to be this thoughtful about continuing to critically think? And I'm probably not even doing it the right way. Like, we're all becoming lazier. And so I loved that statement, thinking was the last frontier. It's like, please, technology, do not take that away from us. And human beings are not going to be trustworthy enough to discipline themselves to use generative AI in a way that allows them to continue critically thinking. They are able to poke holes at themselves, and not many companies are able to do that. Same with unreliability was a really common concern. I'm glad that they pointed that out because I'm not sure a lot of the AI companies would do that. So overall, I was triggered in a really positive way, which is nice to see, and it doesn't happen super often. Usually our triggers are more like, "Urgh,
Yes.
storytelling. What are you talking about?"
Taste and all
Um,
of that jazz. Yeah.
exactly. This was more like a, "Oh my god, pause everything. I have to read this. This is so cool." So, in terms of the déjà vu moment, since we have 15 plus years experience in marketing, in technology, working with platforms, for me, it stood out pretty clearly. There are two moments that this really reminded me of. The first one was in 2014. I went to Austin to go to South by Southwest. And one of the keynotes that I listened to was the Netflix CEO at the time talking about House of Cards and the investment Netflix would make in original content. And I just remember sitting there and feeling really privileged to learn that information. And as someone who was building the content strategy at the time at Louis Vuitton, I was able to put two and two together, and I just saw the path to owned content that was about to take over the entire world. So that moment of privilege is what I felt a little bit with this Anthropic study. Also, this reminded me culturally of social media platforms. Having been in luxury when Instagram launched and L'Oreal when Instagram stories and TikTok launched. So I've always had access being at these big companies to data that no one else had access to. And I just always felt really lucky to have access to that information because it impacted the way I worked. It impacted what I'd share with my teams. It impacted how I would spend my budget. What about you? Are there any moments that this kind of reminds you of in your career?
Well, actually, I really like your perspective that, it's a privilege to have access to this. And that's true. I never thought about it in that frame. I was thinking more in the frame of, branding elements, shaping the narrative because they are very opinionated in the space and because they are trying to create a different narrative than what has been going on in the last 2, 3 years with AI. But if I look at it from the other perspective, as you said, as a researcher, in this social and cultural moment we're in, I truly appreciate that not only they made it available, but they acknowledged all the elephants in the room with this tension of that we get to feel almost every day of on the one hand wanting to be in the early adopters, like taking it in strides, being there with innovation and the cool stuff, but on the other hand talking about the critical thinking aspect of it, but also outsourcing our emotional intelligence as well, which I find, concerning, to be fair, on a personal level. And with my social sciences background, I don't see it going in a good way, but we'll see. This is definitely a deja vu moment, but with added velocity. So I've never felt as overwhelmed as I am right now, being in the tech bubble, being in security, which is let's say, one of the first frontiers that is completely disrupted by AI. And talking about Anthropic, they just launched Mythos, which is only available in beta for a select few companies, which is supposed to be a new agentic AI for security purposes.
So at least they're thinking about it.
They're actively doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting though. I've always looked to the younger generations when new technology or when new big features with social media platforms launched. We have to look to the younger generations because their behavior, especially with new technology, is going to influence the older generations. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to tie this back to those cultural moments in our careers. And this is the biggest shift we've all ever been through. And for those of us who have been through already so many technology and social media platform shifts, we're tired, we're exhausted. Let's get into the practical advice. So, my advice is read this report and think about how you want to use AI in whatever it is you're doing. So, for me, an example is I'm creating a podcast about navigating life transitions. And I've kind of been figuring out how to create a content engine for myself where Claude is my content assistant and asks me a series of questions that I've trained it to ask me, also giving it space to be like, are there any other questions you think I should be asked? But I'm very, very intentional about I don't want AI writing my transcripts for my podcast because if it doesn't sound like me and if I didn't write it, I'm not going to be confident when I talk. And I want it to be me because I'm talking about life transitions here. This isn't like data I can memorize and cite back. This is literally my lived experience. What was I feeling? So read the report and think about how should you be using AI for whatever it is you're doing, and just start experimenting because it is changing really quickly. And I think it's really important that people don't just kind of sit away from it. What about you?
Well, actually, when I had this question pop into my mind if we're still in the early adopter phase or not. And apparently we're not anymore. With the rise of agentic AI, so the move from Gen AI to agentic AI, we're actually considered in a state according to the latest global reports, we crossed the chasm into the mainstream. It's still a transitional phase, as I was saying earlier, but more and more people are actively using it. Of course, it's very much a discrepancy between countries, access. And that's something that Anthropic actually pointed out really interestingly. So something that really stuck with me was Nigeria as a country who uses AI as a form of, going out of poverty, doing entrepreneurship, being relevant to the global stage,
Hmm,
with something that can actually exponentially grow them, which is, the good way of using it. But
absolutely.
on the other hand, yes, you have this. So we are we've crossed the chasm. AI is here to stay. The study definitely shows that yes, some are intuitive, are using it more intuitively, some are actually intentional about it. I would also add to this, be intentional about what you want to use AI for and what you don't want it for. One other thing is that, you know, it's not just about being intentional, but it's also the fact that it's disrupting knowledge work. So it's not just tech. The biggest industries right now are, yes, marketing is one of them, but the biggest industries are e-commerce, banking, financial services, healthcare to a certain degree. So whatever you can think of as knowledge work, it is disrupted. Yes, we've all had the question, to what extent will I be replaced? So what I'm thinking about and the ways that I use AI is, okay, how can I degrade myself from the things that are easy to automate so I can do more of the thinking and not the other way around. Because yes, thinking is the last frontier. I love that. This is definitely the tagline of the conversation. And I don't want to outsource my thinking. I want to outsource my operational skills, process skills, things that I can do more efficiently, so I actually have the time to spend thinking and cultivating emotional intelligence, talking about the two big threats. Of course, what's happening is that yes, we all are lazy. That's how evolution works. So if you made it faster for me, I will probably do it. And then rationalize it. So I think that being aware of this double standards kind of thing is super important for everyone, and especially for the new generations that are growing up with it natively as we grew up with the digital and the
Yes.
dot-com bubble and the advent of the internet and so on. Because I don't think we've ever experienced a moment like we are now. I've seen a lot of metaphors like, no, it's a new industrial revolution. It's like the invention of language. I don't know if we actually have anything to compare it with.
I agree. I think the pace at which it's happening and the level of technology maturity humans have make it that it's incomparable to any other, like, big technological revolution that's happened, even the internet or whatnot. It just the pace was just so different, and our knowledge of technology was so different at the time that I don't think it's comparable. I feel personally that I have never felt those 2 extremes I talked about more than I feel them now. Like, I find myself wanting to go on vacation to places where I feel like no one is talking about AI because it's something I think about and use regularly. So when I disconnect, I want to disconnect from that as well. That's not something I've ever thought about. I've never thought about consciously, like, I want to go on vacation and disconnect from this technology thing that is happening. So, in terms of resources and recommendation, as always, we'll drop them into the notes. But for me, what I do to stay on top of things is just I do use LinkedIn. I try to be intentional about how and when because that shit can be toxic. But I do use LinkedIn for a lot of my kind of AI knowledge and follow specific people that I think speak about it from a lens that I either wanna learn from or B, it resonates with me, so, and also anyone who's really building things AI first, like our former CEO, from DX, Martin Berg, is building Glassbox, and I feel like it's super interesting to pay attention to companies like that who are born in the AI era, and also just spending a good amount of time away from AI. Because, like any technology and like any new tool, I feel like when you take a step out of something, that's when you actually get the perspective of how can this be useful to me? That's when your creative juices flow and you get ideas that you're not going to get if you're just like in it in the narrow tunnel 8 hours of your day or whatever. So that's me. What about you? Like, how do you recommend people stay on top of what the F is going on?
So for me, it's mostly about workflows and skill building and really understanding how the technology actually works behind the scenes. I mean, nobody, yes, it is a black box, but creating, automated workflows with specific agents that do a skill really well, that's actually very hands-on practical, and please put rails on it. Please be aware of what you're giving it access to. So I would say look at the people that are actively talking about this building in public, like Martin is, and that are very much intentional and honest about what it can and cannot do beyond the hype and the marketing promises that all companies are doing right now, because I mean it's the race to, IPO, as I was saying. So ignore that and look at the people that are actually building. Of course, I'm also on LinkedIn and Substack. Those are the two major channels where a lot of people are sharing their templates, their MD files, and all of the good stuff that they're working with, and then reverse engineer it and think about ways to adapt it to your context. I always say this: it's never just copy and paste, but be intentional, because that's how you learn. And at the end of the day, these are still technologies. They're tools for us to do whatever we want with it. And, the tool is neutral. It's up to you to use it in a good way or not so good way. And the other part is, of course, the philosophical side of it. Definitely recommend. There's a newsletter called Dense Discovery, and there's another one called Sentiers. They're very much at the forefront of essays about the ethics of AI, the implications for education, the implications for social stuff. I would say, yes, if you want to make a bit of sense about it, read all the voices. The optimists, the early adopters, but also the cynicists and the skepticals, and draw your own conclusions. Don't let the market draw that conclusion for you.
I think overall we're very optimistic, but we can't neglect the fact that we are mature millennial women who have 15 plus years experience and we tired. We tired of
Yes.
the tech and learning it.
Yeah, and we just want the, uh like the groundwork. So yeah, just go away with the fluff and the BS and let's do
Yes.
let's
Let
do
us
what
do our
we've always
jobs.
done. Exactly.
Exactly. Jinx. All right. Well, good talk. And until next time,
Until next
ciao.
time.